The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. The following is a PWR exclusive.
Ooh, yeah.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report here on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. Damian Nelson along with David Hero and Linda Kay. We're live on Monday night, September 5th, 2011. And Superstar September continues. It started last Friday with the big party with Kevin Nash here in Milwaukee. And now we are joined here on air by Jay Lethal. Jay, how are you tonight?
I am doing pretty good. And yourself?
Fantastic. Actually, tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us here on a late Monday night. And I guess, Jay, the best place to start for our listeners out there is tell us a little bit about what's been going on since your departure from TNA Wrestling a few months back.
Well, what's been going on so far is I've been doing every indie promotion that I possibly could. The best part about that is when I was with TNA, they had full control over who I could and couldn't work for. Mm-hmm. So now it's cool to get to work for some of the people that I couldn't work for, mainly the biggest one being Ring of Honor. And it's just so cool to see where Ring of Honor is now compared to where they were before I actually left. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about Ring of Honor in just a few minutes because Ring of Honor, of course, taking their TV show national on September 24th in just a few weeks. You're going to be a big part of that. But we had an amazing Red on a couple of weeks back, actually. And
my best friend.
We talked to him about his time in TNA Wrestling, and he had some very interesting things to say. And Jay,
hopefully, I don't know how long he was on the show, but hopefully he was on long enough to give you the long version of actually what he went through in TNA. I mean, he has quite the story. A lot of I think he got jerked around more than any of us X Division guys did. So hopefully you were able to get the long version. If you unfortunately got the short version, I'm sure it was a little jumbled up.
We had him on for about an hour, and believe me, he went into great detail about
no stone was left unturned. Yes.
So
cool.
So that leads us to you, Jay. Obviously, you departed TNA Wrestling, and it was around the same time that TNA had this newfound joy for the X Division, of which you played a big part, a 6-time X Division champion. Could you share with us the circumstances of your departure from TNA Wrestling and the reasoning behind it?
Okay, well, I was never really given a reason as to why I was let go. I can only come up with a few different scenarios of what really happened in my head. What was told to me, though, was it was a budget thing. I hadn't been on television in a while, so therefore I was one of the guys just sitting home collecting a paycheck, which they had to put an end to very quickly, as I'm guessing the company must be in financial trouble if the little bit of money that they were giving me was causing them great disdain on their banks, on Panda Energy's bankroll there. Yeah. But that was the reason I was given. I mean, even though there's just so much I'm thinking about right now. But that to answer that question, that was the main reason given to me. And I mean, along with that also goes, hey, creative has nothing for you. I mean, that goes without saying, especially if you've been sitting home for 5+ months. Mm-hmm. Creative must have nothing for you, which would build a lot of frustration on my part, because I felt like there was no reason for creative not to have something for me. I'm not saying that I'm the greatest wrestler in the world, nor is my charisma or fan base the largest in the world, but I mean, I was put on television, luckily enough, on a pay-per-view to go over means to actually win. I defeated one of the greatest wrestlers wrestlers this world will ever see. I mean, the greatest legend that this business will ever see. That is the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. I mean, if you, not just anybody, not just any Tom Joe who gets trained in some backyard and thinks he can wrestle will ever step into the ring with Ric Flair. And on a televised, all around the world television show, if you put someone over the legend Ric Flair, how could you have nothing for them the weeks to follow? I just never understood that.
And
why you put me over at all?
You bring up that Ric Flair scenario, and we'll let you finish telling the story in a moment. But, you know, I got to say this and stop you there, because at that moment, at that time, and I'll never forget for as long as I live, that amazing segment on Impact where you and Ric Flair went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I will tell you this, and I said this when it happened, it was one of the best segments on TV in wrestling in the last 5 years.
And I will tell you this, it was, to this point right now, the scariest moment in my life. As you're aware, every time, well, not so much now lately with CM Punk going wild, but most of the time, whenever you see a professional wrestler with a microphone in their hand, they always have a couple guidelines in their head, or they always have some bullet points that they have to hit. And some of them even have the whole dang promo, as we would call it, already memorized in their head before they even go through the curtain, I'm sure you guys are aware of that. But well, when it comes to Ric Flair, you can't tell him what to say. You write anything for Ric Flair.
Right.
So therefore, I couldn't have anything written for me. So I had to just feed off Ric Flair. Now, that wasn't the scariest part. I mean, that was pretty scary going up against the master of the microphone. I mean, the greatest promo guy in the wrestling history, Ric Flair. As if that wasn't tough enough. But this was actually only the second time that TNA had actually allowed even touch the microphone. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, first I'm going in there with Ric Flair. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what he's going to say. I gotta be on my toes. But not only that, wow, I mean, I've only ever had the microphone one other time, and I wasn't even alone when I had the microphone. I was with my buddy Creed. Yeah. And I think we were cutting a promo on suicide in the ring, which was the big joking promo. So, boy, was I nervous. I still don't think I've ever done anything scarier than that.
And from what I was told and heard is that it was a standing room only when you guys were doing that promo back and forth with all the boys in the back. It was the most entertaining thing that they had seen in a long time as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just so perfect. And you say that maybe it wasn't written and you were nervous. No, you couldn't tell you were nervous, Jay. That's one thing that didn't come across. I can tell you that it was so clear that Ric Flair was even impressed by what was happening, by his reactions. And when he was saying wow so many times, it was just like, this is just gorgeous. This is just magic. This is, as Ric Flair has said in the past, this is good TV. It was great. Well done.
My favorite part about that was when we were going back and forth yelling, "That's my line." That was actually awesome comment. That was her favorite part. Her and her man still go back and forth at home with that. That's my line. That's my line.
Yeah. When that was all said and done and you guys walked to the back, what did Ric Flair say to you?
Oh, he loved it. He gave me a hug and said, "We stole the show, brother."
That you definitely did. But as you were saying, it was shortly thereafter that all of a sudden Jay Lethal was not prominent on TNA television anymore. That had to be frustrating.
It was definitely a little frustrating because what I was thinking was not again. Because I don't know if you're aware, but let's rewind about a year ago. Maybe even more than that. I can't really remember the actual date. But when I wrestled Kurt Angle and I beat him for the X Division title, boy, that was the highlight in my career. Mm-hmm. And the next 2-3 months, I was off TV. Yeah. I don't know what I did. And it was the very similar situation with the Ric Flair. I went over on Ric Flair. I was on Impact a couple more times after that, but then I was off TV for 5 months with no explanation. So, I mean, I don't really know what I did wrong. Maybe I hate to be too sarcastic and say that I performed too well, maybe. I don't.
There is such a thing.
You know what? In this business, there definitely is such a thing. But I just was never told why, or I'd never really understand why I was taken off TV, especially after 2 moments where I'm like, wow, I think I'm going to be actually getting to move forward in this company, and then bam, no, nothing.
And it's a frustration we hear from a lot of talents that have performed with TNA Wrestling, and it seems as if one thing has been made clear by several people on this program, and we'll ask you directly about it right now. Is there any solid direction in TNA Wrestling? Is there a person in charge, or is it, as some people have told us, a big pot of confusion backstage?
Well, I can tell you this. No one has ever sat me down and said, hey, I'm in charge. I make the decisions. If you have a problem, come to me. But I have been told by several higher-ups, hey, if you have a problem, come to me. Hey, if you have a problem, come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if you have a problem, come to me. And then I would go to some of those people for a problem, and, I mean, it wouldn't get resolved right then and there because that person who told me to, do you have a problem, come to me, wasn't fully in charge. I don't know.
He wasn't in charge of that problem.
Right, but I do feel like maybe that company would run a lot smoother if one person just stood up and said, hey, I'm in charge. If you have a problem, come to me. But I think that's all they're missing is just one person. Because like I said, I've never talked to the one person that said, I'm in charge. What's the problem? Let's fix this right now.
If you were given the book in TNA and it said, hey, Jay, we need you to fix the company, who are the top 4 or 5 guys that you would start to rebuild that company around?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a tough question.
I mean, do you keep it with Hogan and Sting and Kurt and Ric Flair, or do you go with the younger guys like, Fortune and Beer Money and, or Kenny Anderson or whatnot? I mean, where, your job is to make some money for that company, and you got, let's say, a year to do it. What changes do you make?
Well,
that's a big question.
Yeah, I think I'm a little biased on that one only because I was part of the X Division, and I sat in the locker room and I was in conversations where some of the X Division guys and us voiced our opinion. I definitely let's take their latest pay-per-view for example. Destination X was it, where it was supposed to feature all the X Division guys. Now I was already out of the company by this pay-per-view, so I was an outsider looking in. So like most wrestling companies do, like the WWE and TNA does it. Most of the time it's pretty well when there's a main event or something that they're actually looking forward to. Weeks before, all you'll hear is the pay-per-view that's coming up. Let's say this one is Hard Justice. So 1 week, 2-3 weeks before, the main, Impact will end with something cool leading up to Hardcore Justice or whatever the pay-per-view that we're leading up to is. And then 1 week before, let's say the last Thursday before that Sunday's show, it's supposed to be that's supposed to be what hooks you to buy that pay-per-view on Sunday. I mean, whether it's the main event guys coming out and getting into a big brawl because that's the main event or whatever. I was so upset and so frustrated, even though I didn't work company, I felt so frustrated for my friends who were actually on the pay-per-view, but the Destination X pay-per-view that they pushed so hard to feature the X Division, it's going to be an all X Division pay-per-view, there was nothing. The final words you hear on that Thursday leading into that Sunday's pay-per-view for all X Division pay-per-view was about whatever bracket system they got going for
the Bound for Glory series.
For Bound for Glory. Yeah. I could not believe it.
Yep.
I could not believe it.
It's interesting discussion, especially as it pertains to TNA Wrestling, but we definitely want to get to Ring of Honor as well and talk about that. Jay, we're going to take a timeout, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about TNA and talk about Ring of Honor and your new journey with them. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com.
Welcome back to the award-winning Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN and ESPNMilwaukee.com.
And we are live with Jay Lethal here on the Pro Wrestling Report on Monday, September 5th, 2011, Labor Day Monday. And Jay, you've been very, very great to talk to so far, but let's talk about TNA, a little bit more about TNA before we move on to Ring of Honor. And I think we have a question from our Facebook page from a listener.
Yes.
Okay.
Jason Barber asks you, what level do you think Ring of Honor will get to in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I mean, one can only hope that Ring of Honor gets us. Well, I was about to curse there. Sorry about that.
Good
One
catch.
can only hope that Ring of Honor gets as high as possible in level of popularity, and I believe it'll work because we're shooting for a different market. I mean, the WWE and TNA are going after the wrestling fans, and we're going after wrestling fans too because our product is wrestling. But there's less story and more in-ring competition. I mean, the company is based around in-ring competition, so we're mainly shooting for those UFC-style fans who are driven by competition, because that's what Ring of Honor is making their centerpiece focus point on, is competition. So, I mean, I think Ring of Honor is going to really take off once their product is actually given to the mass marketing.
And that's going to happen on September 24th on the Sinclair Broadcasting Group, including Channel 24 here in Milwaukee, My 24, where the Pro Wrestling Report will actually be moving to as well, following Ring of Honor on Saturday nights at 10 o'clock. But, Jay Lethal, you're going to have a big matchup on one of those episodes coming up on Ring of Honor TV.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to give anything away.
You're going after a championship, and you're going to be wrestling on, as I said, Ring of Honor television. It's going to be a great matchup. We were there live, David and I, and we saw all the matches that were there to offer that night. And just absolutely, as you said, the competition, the wrestling, the realism behind it is fantastic and phenomenal.
I hadn't been to Ring of Honor in about 6 years, and boy, what it was just so cool to see some of the old faces that I saw, but mainly a lot of the new faces, and just the way I am a strong believer in wrestling is changing with the times. And if you do not believe me, boy, oh boy, you need to watch some Ring of Honor, because I saw some new guys. Not only did I see new faces, but I saw new innovative moves, especially tag team moves that I have never seen, I never even thought of doing. I mean, just being in that locker room just gets the creative juices flowing in the wrestlers' minds. All the cool things that we can do that maybe was a little cliche to do under the normal wrestling guideline rules that we're trying to change in Ring of Honor.
And, you know, I don't think you can get away with talking about Ring of Honor without comparing it to ECW. And while at their core there are some similarities, but the difference in Ring of Honor wrestling is you're not killing each other for 12 minutes in a match. It's believable. And in ECW, you saw a lot of that insane stuff that should have ended the match several times in the matchup. The pacing in Ring of Honor and the athleticism is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know I'm not trying to bury or dig on anything, but I mean, I know Balls Mahoney personally, but I think if I had a steel chair, I might be able to knock him out. I'm not sure. I know
At least use a dinosaur to do it.
He's one of the toughest people I know, but I don't know. I don't know about that.
You know, it's worth talking about, and obviously the unfortunate passing of the Macho Man Randy Savage earlier this year and that tragic incident down in Florida, the car crash and the heart attack. Black Machismo, the character that really defined you in TNA wrestling. You know, you've spoken publicly and said that you and Randy had spoken, or you had sought permission for the usage of the, I guess you can call it the character, if you will. But was it that whole moniker that sort of led into the Ric Flair situation? Because I think it became so clear when you were involved with Ric Flair that it wasn't impersonating, it was embodying some of the greatest stars in professional wrestling.
Oh, definitely. As a matter of fact, the TNA offices and officials, or whatever you want to call them, found out that I could do this great Macho Man impersonation or this impression just because I would do it all the time in the locker room. And it wasn't until Kevin Nash came around when he decided, hey, you know what, it'd be a good idea for you to do that on TV. I think it'd be a huge success. And right away...
Wait. You mean Kevin Nash actually helped out a younger guy?
Contrary to what you may have heard from his WCW days, and contrary to what you may have heard about him being a horrible kisser. Yeah, and if Kevin is listening, he'll actually appreciate that joke. But yeah, it was Kevin Nash who, it was, the whole thing was his idea. And right away, I didn't really want to do 3 reasons, I'd say. One, because I was pretty young and I didn't want to look stupid on television because at my age, I didn't really know too much about the business. I wanted to be the world champion, the Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, and I didn't want my buddies from high school watching me make a fool of myself on television. Luckily, that view would change very, very quickly. The second view that I had that made me didn't really want to do it was the fact that all I'd heard from Kevin Nash was how crazy the Macho Man was. And it was very feasible that he would show up and try and get through security just to get at me if I'd done this in any kind of joking way to make fun of him at all. And
there was a lot of pressure on you throughout this whole thing.
Oh, I definitely think so. As a matter of fact, the third reason where I automatically thought, no, I don't want to do this, is because I didn't think there was any way of me doing it, especially in TNA's eyes, because I knew exactly what they would make me do. I knew exactly the kind of things they would make me do. I didn't think there was any way of me pulling this off without making fun of the Macho Man.
Right.
Because, it was a big joke to them, so I'm sure they would put it on TV as a big joke. And that was probably my biggest fear of making the Macho Man look silly in any way.
And you didn't ever in any way, shape, or form do that, at least from our standpoint. Jay, we've got just a few seconds left. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on Ring of Honor television. We'd love to have you on again very soon here to continue talking.
That was it? Oh, I got much more inside to say. I'm definitely going to have to come back.
Oh, we'll have you back sometime soon. Jay Lethal on the Pro Wrestling Report. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after Sports Center. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com.